There's many in this community who certainly understand that holding gold like this gold eagle here, as opposed to fiat currency like these European euro coins, well, it's a no-brainer for us. But many nations do not want to be constrained by gold, whereas you and I, we embrace it. And that is what has led to massive inflation. We're going to talk about that and what one nation is doing to fight it. Let's explore. I'm going to be referencing a visual graphic here from Visual Capitalist. This is remarkable. This gives us some insight on how bad inflation is around the world. And for almost half of the nations around the world, it's double digits. Some are in triple digits. It's one of those triple digit nations that I'm going to be talking about that is doing something to fight gold. So let's take a look here at this infographic. Pretty remarkable. Today, many countries around the world are experiencing this double or even triple digit inflation. You can see these countries with the highest inflation rates globally, as soaring energy prices are driving up the cost of living. But what else is missing from this explanation is what central banks are doing. They are printing currency. They're using easing monetary policy, quantitative easing. That's what's leading to a lot of this around the world. Now, obviously, there are other factors, and we'll talk about that as we take a look at this infographic. Remarkable here. We can see the scale, and especially what's happening in some of these European countries, double digits with the Netherlands, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Hungary, Norway, Sweden, all these nations experiencing double-digit inflation. Spain, though, is under us. And we're at 7.7% as of this making of this infographic. France is even less. But nonetheless, there is more to it than meets the eye in terms of how these numbers are calculated and the strength of the currencies. You know, we have the strongest currency out there, even with other nations having lower inflation than us. Why is that? Because 60% of all transactions are done in U.S. dollars. We're the cleanest of the dirty shirts in the laundry pile. We can see Ukraine's is up over 26% due to war disruption, and that could account for Russia's as well. Russia's is at 12.6%, and keep in mind Russia's economy is about the size of Italy's, but in Italy is at 17%. Oh no, I guess they're at 11% if my eyes do not deceive me here. Why is China so low? Well, a lot of the COVID lockdowns are still happening here. In fact, that's why our inflation rate was so low during 2020. China has maintained relatively low inflation due to dampened domestic demand and lockdowns. And we'll talk about that, but there's a lot of still, and of course, they're starting to open up now due to protest. But we can see here that Sri Lanka is very high. India is less than ours, but they're still high too. But I guess some stifled economic activity as well, too. But look at Iran. Iran is at 52%, and Turkey is very high. But we know Turkey has a revolving problem with inflation in that country. It seems to creep up every couple of years and what have you, which is why the Turkish people, in and of themselves, as well as the central bank, has been accumulating gold. And so the people have their own private holdings of gold, which is very smart. We don't see that too often, but it is alive and well. Gold stacking is alive and well in Turkey. I've done various different videos about that. We can see other nations in Africa with a wide gamut. Some of them don't even have a list of, what the rates are, but some of them are lower and higher than others. Sudan is at 103. Zimbabwe is the highest inflation in the world with an eye-watering 269%. When I think of that, I think of them biting into a massive hot jalapeno pepper or ghost pepper that is just strife full of modern monetary theory. And again, we know that Zimbabwe is doing action to fight inflation with minting their own gold coins. Talked about that earlier. They have their own gold coins that they have been producing and selling to the public, which is remarkable. This year, they've come out with fractional sizes as well. And that's what that nation is doing. What about Venezuela? Venezuela's massive inflation rate, you can see here, has been in triple-digit territory for more, vaulting to 300,000% in 2019. Massive. And they're not doing the right thing either to fight it. But nonetheless, we can see the top highest inflation rates, Zimbabwe, is far ahead of all the others. But the one nation that's behind slightly or dramatically, but still way up there, just above Venezuela, is Lebanon. Yes, indeed, at 162%. In fact, but they are actually taking action different than what Venezuela is doing. With the IMF, they have just in recent days and weeks completed an audit of their gold successfully, according to the central bank. From the nationalnews.com, the measure is one of the reforms required by the IMF to unlock billions of dollars in loans. So the IMF, they have their own gold stockpile as well. These big central banks, they understand gold, and they accumulate it. Here we can see a photo of Riyad Salama, which is the governor of Lebanon's central bank, where an audit of gold assets has been conducted. Now, I believe this, I don't know where this picture was taken, but likely it looks like it could be London vaults, but who knows. An audit of Lebanon's central bank gold reserves has concluded after a 2-year process interrupted by COVID-19 lockdowns. The process was completed at the International Monetary Fund's request by a specialized and professional international auditing firm, the central bank said on Thursday in a statement. The auditing firm, whose name was not disclosed, was selected by La Banque de Liban's external supervisory commissioner in agreement with the International Monetary Fund, according to a press release. It became clear to the company that the gold assets of the central bank, ingots and coins, you've heard me talk about that, some of these central banks not only store bars but also coins. And that should give us a boost of confidence that when we buy coins, gold coins ourselves, we are storing the same type of material that these central banks are doing. It corresponds completely in quantity and quality to the entries recorded in the accounting records of the central bank, the press release said. According to its latest figures, Banque de Liban's gold reserves were worth $16.4 billion in the middle of November 2022. The long-awaited audit was one of the crucial reforms requested by the IMF to access $3 billion in loans to lift Lebanon out of the continuing financial crisis that has plunged almost 3/4 of its population into poverty. Bad times in Lebanon right now, and they're using their gold to help and get out of it. In September, the IMF said that Lebanon was making very slow progress to enact the requested reforms agreed under a preliminary agreement signed in April. The measure came after authorities requested an inventory in March of 2020 for the first time in at least 3 decades amid intense scrutiny over the central bank's financial losses. The 2018 audited statements, which were leaked to the press, showed that central bank gold reserves were estimated at around $18 billion. But auditors EY and Deloitte said they were unable to conduct an in-person inventories to independently check the amount, which had caused suspicions among experts on the exact amount of gold inside the bank's vaults. Now, look at the scrutiny that Lebanon is under because they're in hardship. Their back is against the wall. Whereas here in this country, the closest thing we're going to get to an audit is the previous Treasury Secretary having his photo taken from a copy, from another copy, from a photocopy in black and white, saying with a tweet saying "Glad gold is safe." In other words, we don't have to have our gold audited. We're accountable to no one. Although I would beg to differ from that, because I think that we are accountable to the American people. And but the thing is only you and I really care about what's in our vaults. And most of Americans could care less about what is in the vaults in Fort Knox and in New York. There will not be a gold audit because the public won't demand it. until the public stands up and rises up against this lack of transparency with our gold reserves, we're not going to see it here. But nonetheless, that is what Lebanon is doing. And so they're at 162% inflation. They are in trouble for sure. And Venezuela is, I think, probably getting bailed out by Russia and other like-minded nations. But we can see there, here is an actual list of these nations with all of the inflation rates that you can see there. Syria is also in trouble, 139%, but they are still kind of reeling from the war-torn area that they've been under for quite some time. A lot of these nations, which, by the way, many of these nations are indeed, culturally and otherwise, and they are very friendly to gold. But their inflation rate is still high. Their central banks do not want to be bound by, they don't want to be bound by gold. They want to be able to do what they want to do with their printing the money. So there's no constraints. So we can look and we can see, we'll go to the very end of this list, and we can see that only one nation, and it is the newest nation in the entire world, has deflation, and that is South Sudan. And likely that deflationary is not a good thing, which means there's probably not a lot of economic activity here. Macau and Panama also have very low inflation rates, probably for likely much of the same reason. So very interesting indeed. So there you have it. Pretty wild to see. We can see how energy prices play a role. Obviously, there's other factors, but we also have to keep in mind that a lot of it is money printing. So what an amazing thing. What is a lesson for us? The lesson for us is to keep stacking our silver, keep stacking gold, hold on to it, be our own central bank. If we do that, then we will be okay. Because in the end, it's all about wealth preservation. So we don't lose our hard-earned money. And holding dollars, even though we need them for transactions, they are bleeding value. And we want to preserve that value. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.